as we head back to talking about Nikias and talk about being even more concerned about your behaviors and that they be completely free of any type of what we would call need nude avera, any movement towards the wrong way of making a decision. And we last left our heroes here talking about in chapter 11. We were on the paragraph talking about ona'ah. We were talking about that is how bad that is to be considered someone who oppresses others. And he said that this is all follows underneath the category of theft. And we thought how profit would be so much more valuable to somebody else. We see how bad that is. And so now we're continuing over here. Amnam, however, if you're not careful about it, then basically, this is a quote from Eov 31:40. Then from the sprout of wheat will instead come thorns, meaning Ki avor ba'avon ha'ona'ah, az huzharnu aleha, v'lo sonu ish es amiso. Because we clearly see that someone who's not careful with how they treat others, the Torah has to warn you even more so to stay away from it. For Amru Zal, afil l'ramos es agoy aser v'yikra ksiv, ukra ksiv, she'eris Yisrael lo yasa avla, v'lo yidabru chazav, v'lo yimatzeh b'fihem lashon tarmis. It's even though the Torah says don't oppress your own people, this even extends to non-Jews, even though there's no legal recourse, meaning they aren't b'nei bris, they wouldn't be able to seek the same type of recourse in a Beis Din. However, it's still an implication of the Jewish people. Why are you not behaving better? Because it quotes Zephaniah in the 3rd chapter, 13th verse. Those of you of Israel who are left here in the city, do nothing that is reproachable. That's what I was looking for. And don't say things that are false and misleading. And don't try to lead somebody away. You need to be very careful with these things. V'chein amru ein mefarkasin es hakelim hayeshanim sheyeru kachadashim. You cannot scrub old stuff to make it look new. Right? As the Gemara in Bava Metzia about ona'ah. Don't do these things. What else can't you do that's ona'ah? They have to be very careful about. Ein ma'arvin peiros bePeiros afilu chadashim b'chadashim afilu sabas dinar. Afilu yafa dinar utrisis. Lo ya'arv ve'im karem sa'ab dinar. Kol osa ela, kol osa avel. Vekori hachamisha shemos avel sanui meshukatz cherem toeva. So even the Sifrei also says about ona'ah, this is where there's a prohibition to not mix fruits, okay? And these fruits, the problem with them is they come from different fields. So he's not actually saying that in the words of here, but that's what he's talking about. And they are both fresh, I mean, they grew at the same time, okay? So they're new, from the new crop. And even if the price is the same, okay, and one price is dinar that we mentioned, and the other price is called a tarsis, okay, or trisis. And you can't mix them together, okay, because they're not worth the same. And so that's not allowed to mix them, okay? So because we say in Devarim, kol ha'osa avel, okay, kol osa ela, kol osa avel. Those who do these things are doing something wrong. And what are those 5 things called? So one of them is avel, okay? So that's considered reproachable, like we translated before. Disgusting, condemned, abhorrent, all these words. V'lo amru, v'od amru zikanim livracha. Furthermore, about theft, kol hagozel es chavero afilu shava pruta ki'ilu noto nashu imenu. Taking even the smallest amount from your friend that's worth something is considered taking his soul. This is the depths of how much the sin permeates you by doing it. Amru Od, and we have another Gemara that talks about this. This is Tainus. This is in Maseches Tainus, Daf Zion, page 7. Okay, so he says in this case, this is on 7, and it's on the other side of the page, Daf Beis. Okay, Zion Beis. that rain is withheld because of stealing. And in the Midrash it further says, is in Vayikra Rabbah, it says, Kupa Malaya Avonos Mi Mekatrek Rosh Kulam. Gazel. Right? So the Midrash itself says, if you were to take a whole basket of sins like you had in the time of any group of people that's been punished, what sits at the top of the bucket that says that they've done the most wrong? Theft, stealing. And the Gemara even says further in Sanhedrin, it's in page 108a, theft is the big deal. So how are we supposed to convince somebody to buy something? Okay, now if that's your question, that's what's bothering you. How am I supposed to convince somebody to buy something, right? So this is an easy answer. There's obviously a huge difference between being a true operator and a fake operator. If you're telling him about all the great things he's going to get that are all true about the thing you're purchasing, right? It's a good item and it looks good, right? And the effort you make on pointing out all the good things is great, but trying to cover up all the problems and you're trying to say, oh, you should take it, whatever. You need to not do that. Okay, that's what it means to be a faithful business person. Lo omer me'inyan midos shaharei befeirush kasu behem to avasashem elokecha kol osei elev amru zichron livracha kasha anshan shel midos me anshan shel arayos va'amru hasiton mekaneach vidosav achas shloshim yom kol kach lama kadesh lo yachsaru below da'as v'lo yanesh. And it's not just about your own personality that we're talking about, but when you are somebody who is deceitful and you do something like that, God say that's what the pasuk was saying in the Varim that we quoted earlier, that this is disgusted by God. He rejects this in a wholly. And in the Gemara in Bava Basra, it's on page 88, that having dishonest weights and dishonest measures, that is worse than any of the things that you could do when it comes to prohibited relationships. Okay, and that's the Gemara there. And it says further there that someone who is a ceton, someone who sells things in large quantities, he must wipe his weights every single month, because you don't want to make sure that he is not giving them enough. So that's why someone who dunks their weights in salt is trying to give people less. He's trying to show that so if they're not clean, you're giving people less, and that should be considered a negligent behavior, and you should be punished for that. And how much more so I guess to Kolshgan Avan HaRibis, charging interest, Shegadolhu, that is a huge one. Kekofer Bilkei Yisrael Chas v'shalom. The Gemara says above Metzia that one who gives out ribis is like one who denies that they get their wealth from God itself. Right? So that's on page 71. For Amru Zichron Livracha, and the pasuk says on this, right? B'neshech nasam mesarbis lakach hayo lo yichya. So the Midrash in Shemos Rabbah in chapter 31, it quotes the verse on Yechezkel, okay, and which is in chapter 18, verse 13. And it says the following about that verse, okay? That charging interest is so horrible, it's like it will even steal your life from you. What does it take? What's it taking from you? It's taking eternal life from you. Because both it, the Torah prohibition, and the dust of it, the rabbinic prohibition, are disgusting to God, and He rejects it fully. Now the scare tactics attached to not charging interest are already spread out amongst the Jewish people. But what we should see in general from this is that people really want to give themselves more money, and it's really one of the biggest things upon which people stumble. And so, if it requires you to be very, very clear about how you go about examining your behaviors to make sure that you have cleansed yourself from them. And if once you have cleansed yourself from them, then you should know that you're reaching a very high madrig, a very high level. Okay. Okay, so to talk about piety further, he says, "Ki rab mischasadu ba'anafim rabba mi'anfei hachasidus, u'v'inyan sinas habetza lo yachlu hagia el mechoz hashalemus." So many people have taken different ways to travel different paths, or as he says here, the different offshoots of being a chassid, of being a pious person. And you need to be really careful about that when it comes to what's called betza. Betza means you're being bought. Okay, so if you aren't careful about that, you're not going to fulfill your tafkid, your what level you could command. Humash amat so far hana masi le'Iyov. So far hana masi says this to Iyov at the very beginning of his time there. Im avin biyancha harchikehu ve'el tishkan ba'olecha avla ki az tisafanecha mimum v'hayisa mutsak v'lo sirah. If you have anything iniquitous in your hand, anything that is bad, okay, send it far from you, and do not allow something that is unjust to live in your place, right? Avel is meaning in your tents, okay, because then when you look up with your face, it will be perfect, and you shall be able to hold yourself up and will not be afraid of anything. So that's from Iyov, chapter 11, verses 14 and 15. Hine dibarti ad hina miprate mitzvah achas min mitzvos uvifrate chalukim ele vadesh nimtzeim b'chol mitzvah u'mitzvah. Amnam einenu mazkir ele osam shreglim rov b'nei adam lahikash alehem. We've talked about a number of particulars of this one mitzvah, and in going through all of its, in delineating all of its different parts, we're finding that there really are lots of different parts to every single mitzvah. However, we're only going to focus on the most common mitzvos at issue with the majority of people, right? And the ones that give them the most problems. So, so the next topic that we're going to get to is at the end of Gezel, and it's another long subject. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pick up with a rayos the next time, because this is a long subject, has a number of categories to it. So what we're going to, we are about halfway through the section. I think the next class that we have, we will try to get through a long section on forbidden relationships, because there's a lot to go through over here. And I do think that it takes up the overwhelming majority of this chapter. This next section, it'll be a long class, and so we may have to break this up into second section. Because so what we'll do is we're going to talk about the second category here is the forbidden relationships, and then after that will be forbidden food. So we do want to take our time and delineate all these things. I think we're going to hold here since we just finished Gezel. It was long. It was a very long section, and this next section talking about forbidden relationships will also be lengthy. And the third section about forbidden foods is, while important, is not as long, but still very important. So we will come back to talk about forbidden relationships. There's no reason to go through all of these things, okay? And then we're also going to need to leave some time towards the end of the chapter for talking about Lashon Hara, because that's an important section. Again, not terribly long. We may want to break some of these up. You want to give yourself time to kind of think about all the different issues, and so just take time. So we have a lot more to go through in this chapter. It's one of the longest chapters in the whole book, and so better to go through different parts of it slowly and in depth. So take this time to kind of go over theft again and to think about it, and and then we'll take some time to go over some of these other topics. Some of the other ones towards the end are talking about speech and so on, speech patterns and how you use speech and so on. Those will probably take a while as well. So it's again very involved chapter. People, and he reiterates several times that we're only going through the ones that are the most common problematic ones. And then as the chapter kind of rolls on to the end, we basically get into some of the issues that are sort of like general topical issues. So it'll take us a while to get through it, but we shall. So we will meet again next week to discuss forbidden relations and then continue on the topics through there. So thank you for joining, and we will learn with you again next time.